My name is McPherson-Kim. Today we are going to be talking about the Lion of Alat. The Lion of Alat was built by followers of Allah in ancient Palmyra, which is in modern-day Syria, during the 1st century CE. Palmyra was established during the 3rd millennium BCE and was initially conquered by Rome in 64 BCE. It was later taken by Persia in the 2nd century CE, but was conquered by Rome in 273 CE. Here is a picture of the temple in which the lion used to stand in front of. The temple was damaged and left to degrade on its own after Rome converted to Christianity, and that was when the statue of Alat and the lion were initially lost. The statue itself is 11 feet tall and 15 tons and made of limestone. It depicts a large lion holding a gazelle at its feet. The lion's tenderness in which it holds the gazelle is to show the loving and tender traits of Alat. The lion used to stand at the front of the ancient temple in Palmyra, and it acted as almost a symbolic guardian of the temple. The lion in general was seen as a consort and symbol of the goddess Alat in pre-Islamic religion and was a very important symbol to her. Alat was the goddess of war, peace, prosperity, and fertility. And here's a picture of a pre-Islamic statue of her. And she was basically the pre-Islamic equivalent to Athena. The lion was a symbol of Alat's strength, and it was even seen as both marking and protecting the ancient temple and its worshippers. Here is an example of another statue of hers where she is depicted like Athena, and this was made after the Romans initially conquered Palmyra. The statue was left lost until it was rediscovered in 1977 by the Polish archaeologist Michael Golikowski from the Polish Center of Mediterranean Archaeology of the University of Warsaw. They originally thought it was a part of the foundation until they found the head of the lion. It was then put on display in Palmyra as a showcase of the artifact's beauty, and it became a symbol of the town, and every tourist came to take a picture with it.
The Lion of Alat was destroyed in ISIL's Palmyra offensive in May 2015. Palmyra, Syria was invaded by jihadist troops from the terrorist organization of ISIL. In modern times, ISIL is known as the Islamic State, but it was also previously known as the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, or ISIS. A jihadist is someone who takes part in jihad. ISIL, what it was known as at the time, stands for the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant. The Levant is in Israel, Lebanon, Cyprus, Jordan, and Syria, and is basically the coastal region of the Eastern Mediterranean. Now, what is ISIL? ISIL is one of the most deadly and radical terrorist groups originating from the Middle East. At one point, they held a good deal of territory in the Middle East and a surprisingly large amount of territory in Africa. In this graph, the pink represents territory under ISIL's control, the yellow shows the territory ISIL lost in 2015, and the red shows how much territory they gained. If you look, you can see the city of Palmyra held in the middle of gained territory. They have a suspected 25,500 to 33,000 kills, mostly late Iraqi and Syrian soldiers. ISIL was formed in 2004 following the U.S. invasion of Iraq. They merged with Al-Qaeda, another well-known terrorist group from the same region, most popularly known as the group responsible for 9/11. You can see in this graph the territory that Al-Qaeda controlled in 2017 compared to ISIL's territory. Pay attention to the significant amount of territory that ISIL held in Africa compared to the territory held in the Middle East, especially considering the territory of Al-Qaeda is pretty much the opposite. ISIL's goals are to recreate the caliphate and spread their extremist form of Islam. They split from Al-Qaeda in 2010 due to conflicting leadership and immediately declared a caliphate. Back to the Palmyra offensive, Palmyra was invaded on May 13, 2015, and the invasion was completed on May 26, 2015. It was one of the largest offensives ISIL ever launched. The UNESCO World Heritage Site was seized on May 21, 2015, and hundreds of ancient artifacts were destroyed. Destruction of historic sites and artifacts is nothing new to terrorist strategy. For weeks beforehand, historic artifacts had been smuggled out pre-ISIL attack, but not all could be moved in time, as many were too large to be moved discreetly. Many UNESCO workers were attempting to smuggle artifacts over the border. The Lion of Alat was no different. One man, Khalid al-Assad, Palmyra's late director of antiques, attempted to smuggle out the lion, but was caught and arrested, and later subsequently killed by ISIL. You can see him here standing with the lion, along with the Polish architect who discovered it, Michael Gawlikowski. The attempted smuggling brought attention to the idol, and the terrorists destroyed it using bulldozers and sledgehammers. The reason ISIL destroyed this statue was due to its status as an idol. Extremist form of Islam strictly prohibits the worship of idols, and to them, the statue was a gigantic representation of idolatry. It is not uncommon for terrorist groups to destroy ancient artifacts. They also usually video it and showcase it for the world to see. These practices are not just acts of violence, but are also often very purposeful. Destroying the statue along with many other artifacts and then carefully and purposefully videoing it and sharing that video on the internet shows how the Islamic State portrays their message of violence and religious extremism by acting out against supposed idolatry. Not only does it destroy history, it also damages the local sense of belonging and erases a sense of connection to the community of which the lion was taken from and destroyed. ISIL today has lost much of the territory that it had at its height in 2015, but it still has a lot of power and influence in Iraq and the Levant. You can see in this graph that they held little to no territory in their homeland by 2019. Despite the attacks on their territory, their ideologies are still widespread and very dangerous. As of late 2022, they have at least 19 branches remaining in Africa, Asia, and Europe.
As for the lion, it was relocated by the Syrian Directorate General of Antiques with the aid of Syrian government and Russian military forces in 2016 and relocated to Damascus for restoration. It was completely restored in 2018. It is now on display at the National Museum of Damascus and will stay there for the foreseeable future, but might eventually be brought back to its original location in Palmyra.